back of the rim. Got it! Oh, the slam! Here's a Curry way downtown. Oh, what a shot from Curry!
The Ben Simmons saga is exactly where it's been for the better part of the summer, really. The only difference today is we have something concrete from Woj, and if Woj says it, it's official. We'd heard that Simmons didn't want to play for the Sixers, he wants a trade, Daryl Morey wants their entire team in a trade, but I'm not sure if I had heard official news that Ben Simmons is not going to training camp in, what is this, like a week or two? I don't think I had actually heard it from him or heard it from a super reliable source that he just wasn't showing up. We got that today, we definitely got that today. Woj says that the 76ers All-Star Ben Simmons will not report for the opening of training camp next week and intends to never play another game for the franchise. Simmons hasn't spoken to them since a late August meeting when he communicated this message to Sixers officials, so it's official. I'm not sure if I understand the play here. This is different. This is different than most situations. When we get a situation like this, it's a superstar player. Yeah, so Ben Simmons is not a superstar, but it's a superstar player normally with like a year or two left on his contract who's clearly leaving and has total control over the team. Maybe he's got the coach that he wants there. He can get that coach fired. He can get a different guy traded. Like the whole team kind of runs through this star. He controls everything. And it's weird because Ben Simmons is not the best player on the Sixers. I'm not on the Ben Simmons is trash camp. I personally think he could be really valuable in the right role on the right roster, but the Sixers have not been that. And it's funny because there was always this set of Sixers fans that would get so angry when you would point that out for the last 2 years probably. It was a simple thing. It was a simple thing to see it wasn't going to work. You would have the center, Joel Embiid, the best player on the team. He's the floor spreader in that situation, and Ben Simmons is the guy that you need to give space to in the paint, yet he's the point guard. It was always inverted. So we used to say that all the time. One of these guys is going to have to get traded. The Sixers are going to have to choose. Philly fans are like, oh, why do we have to choose? Why are y'all doing this? Why are y'all trying to get rid of them so early? It's not that. It's just so obviously wasn't going to work. However, Ben Simmons is also 24 years old. He has, what, 4 years left on his contract? He's under contract till 2025, and it's a hard contract. There's no team option, there's no player option. He's just got solid years for the next 4 seasons. That's a long time. The little bit of leverage that I thought he had, he doesn't have. That little tiny bit of leverage was Joel Embiid's contract, where he would have been a free agent this summer or next summer. And so I kind of felt like, well, the Sixers front office probably feels like they have to figure this out, because if you keep an unhappy Ben Simmons, then Joel Embiid gets unhappy and he goes like every other superstar and finds a happy situation. Looks like he may have been influenced by seeing Giannis win a championship this summer. He went ahead and locked it up. He wants to bring the title to Philly. That's not going to happen with Simmons, but also his trade value for this stunt that he's pulling. First of all, the stunt that he's pulling with not going to training camp with no leverage at all. To me, it's kind of unheard of. I know Steve Francis didn't play a game for his franchise where he was drafted. So you have that. You've had young guys be unhappy before, but I can't recall, at least in my lifetime, seeing a guy this young with this little leverage saying, I'm not going to play basketball for this team anymore. That sets a dangerous precedent, because if it actually works, then what's to stop the Zions of the world? Or hell, is Jalen Green going to be a star? What happens when he becomes a star and he figures out he hates Houston and all of a sudden he just wants to go play somewhere else once he's under contract? Are stars really going to be able to do this now? Because superstars have been able to do this. Carmelo Anthony many years ago when he was on Denver left. Harden just left. A superstar with a couple of years will always be able to say, hell, not even just 1 or 2 years. A superstar with maybe as many years as Ben Simmons can be toxic enough to tell a team, I'm not playing for y'all anymore, go ahead and move me. I could see that happening. After watching this recording back, I did want to clear up a little bit of what happens in this video and saying that Ben Simmons is forcing his way out, because technically that's not true. They tried to trade him for Harden last year. They've been trying to trade him this summer. So the fans don't like Ben Simmons. The team doesn't want Ben Simmons, and Ben Simmons doesn't want to be there. It's not really him just straight up forcing his way out. There's blame on both sides, definitely. Philly is to blame for really running kind of like the same system over the last couple of years, not being able to retain Jimmy Butler. Whatever you want to put on them management wise for Ben Simmons in Philadelphia not working, sure. Also the fact that he hasn't developed a jumper. He doesn't shoot outside of the paint. That's one of those things that goes on both sides. There's many reasons why it's not worked. So yes, Ben Simmons does need to leave Philadelphia one way or the other. I've been on that train for a while. Definitely not totally fair to just say he is pushing his way out, but when I talk about him forcing his way out, I'm speaking of the methods of which he's now going about it. The part where his value is going to stay exactly where it was because he's just not going to play for the franchise anymore. That's a tactic. That's a tactic coming from his side, and you know, it's an entirely different subject to talk about whether he should feel that way, whether he should just feel like, fuck Philadelphia, the fans hate me, the team doesn't want me. Yeah, maybe he should feel that way. But then there's also an argument to be had about you signed a contract, so regardless of what happens, let's put something out there, it's not necessarily wrong for the team or the fans to not want him anymore. So there's that, and there's the fact that he signed a contract there. There's a lot going on. Who's right or who's wrong in this situation? It's not necessarily what this video is about, but I did want to address it because when you put it out there that when you talk about what's now happening, that is something that comes up. I just do want to point out though, he's not the first player to be shopped, man. He's not the first player to be shopped. He's not the first player to be traded. Pau Gasol was traded from the Los Angeles Lakers for Chris Paul. In that deal for Chris Paul, it fell through and he came back and played. It hurt him. I think it's probably one of the reasons he left a couple of years later. He wasn't ever truly happy after that, but he didn't just say, oh, well, you guys clearly don't want me anymore, so I'm not playing. That's just, there's a reason that players don't do that. I saw Woj just tweet out that withholding salary is a thing that can happen. So yes, every player has a basic control over where they play, where they choose to provide their labor, but it's a very basic concept of leverage. It doesn't really go any deeper than that. So when I say Simmons has no leverage, that's what I mean. Sure, anybody can wake up tomorrow, I don't know, Brandon Ingram could wake up and say, I don't want to play for the Pelicans tomorrow, but there's a reason more players don't do that. It gets messy for both sides. It gets messy for the team. So sure, maybe there's a little bit of leverage there, but it gets really messy for the player. Otherwise, you would see this every time somebody hated their situation. But this situation, oh boy, and it gets worse because of his value. His value's in the toilet. His value is in the toilet at this specific moment. He had a terrible playoffs. It was on display for everyone, especially because they went out way earlier than they were supposed to. You get the first seed, you have this great season, and you get put out by the Hawks, who, by the way, it wasn't some fluke. Atlanta did not win because of injuries. They just straight up beat them. Ben Simmons was a big part of that. It wasn't just him, but the lasting images of him not taking a wide open layup, him being thoroughly outplayed by Trae Young, it's all there. And so you can't tell a team right now, hey, give me everything you've got for Ben Simmons, even though I don't believe he's worth some of the things that Daryl Morey has been asking for, but I do believe he's worth more than a lot of Twitter or YouTube things. This guy is still a great defender, great rebounder. Hell, good finisher. He can do pretty much everything else except shoot like a traditional point guard, which is, it's crippling. But if you were to get him on the right team, like if there was a way to get him on Golden State as a center or some squad where they could play small ball with him as the big, there's ways to get creative with Simmons. But right now, the NBA, it's a business. The NBA is always a business. And right now they can look and say, oh, his value is low. We're not giving you anything for him. And he's not playing for you guys either. So he can't raise his value. You guys can't make him play. I don't understand exactly where this one is going to go. I don't see the end game. I don't see the end game for the Sixers or Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons doesn't play. First of all, this just looks really bad on him, right? You can say whatever happened in Philly. If you think they said something to him bad enough or did something to him bad enough to warrant this, then whatever. But boy, this is a really, really tough stance to take with no leverage. It's tough to imagine him playing in Philly, because could you imagine the first home game with Ben Simmons right now? They announced him in pregame. This is the first home game of the season, and he gets booed harder than LeBron returning to Cleveland. Like, boy, they gonna be on his ass. So there's really no good optic way for this to end. There's not a good trade package out there because nobody's giving up anything of super value. Even the deal that we love to talk about right now, right? It seems all the photoshops are of him in Wolves jerseys. That's where we've heard him connected to. Are they even going to get D'Angelo Russell from the Wolves? The Wolves, to me, it doesn't really make sense if they have to trade a guy like D. Russ to get Simmons there. Simmons in town seems like I don't want to say a worse version than he and Embiid, but I don't see how it's way different. You have a shooting center, a shooting star center with superstar potential, and then Ben playing point or what. I don't know. They would have to do it differently than they've done it in Philly. Obviously, you're not going to make the same mistake twice. But why would the Wolves give up Russell in that trade? And I know you're not giving up Anthony Edwards, not with the potential he has, so I'm not sure what the package is there. The Rockets are talking about a potential trade with John Wall. Now, it's said that the Rockets like that trade. I don't think the Sixers like that trade. John Wall is still a serviceable point guard. He came back way faster and more athletic than I thought he would after an Achilles injury. But in 2021, I don't think John Wall in pieces is the Sixers starting point guard or the starting package for a championship. I'm not sure I see that. I don't know. Ben Simmons in Cleveland, what are y'all going to get from Cleveland? What moves the needle? What trade moves the needle for the Sixers to move them towards a championship? And what package out there that another team can give moves them towards a championship if they're able to get him? It's really confusing. It's confusing. I don't see the end game. I don't see the end of the situation. I don't know. This is one that I am following intently. I'm just checking my phone. But I will say that, yeah, in my lifetime, this is the first I've seen that's this extreme. This after a couple of years, and he's got this long left on his contract. Man, we are in uncharted territory. I tell you, if those rumors are true about Zion not really liking New Orleans, and then he sees Simmons does this a couple of years from now, Zion gets that contract and says, hey, I just don't want to play here anymore. He doesn't seem like that type of guy. Zion, he doesn't seem like he's built like that at all. But if he was and he wanted to go win, What stops any young player after they sign that max contract from saying, I just don't want to play here? Whatever it is. Oh, coach pissed me off in the exit meeting. He said something to me I didn't like. Oh, I don't see the direction of this team. I just don't want to be here anymore. Eric Bledsoe type beat. This would be pretty dangerous for y'all who are fans of bad teams out there who rely on drafting guys like Simmons or Zion or whoever, just high draft picks, who are basically forced to stay with you for the better part of 7 years, 6 or 5 at least. Well, let me know what you think about it in the comment section. Where do you think Ben Simmons is going to go? What do you think is the best trade package out there for him? And how do you see the saga playing out? Because he's gonna get fined to hell. There's gotta be some serious repercussion. The NBA is a business. For the reasons that I just stated, there's gotta be something serious other than, oh, we're gonna fine him a certain amount of money that he probably won't miss anyways. There's really gotta be something. They have to lay the hammer down or else you lose control of this whole restricted free agent thing. What's the point of having draft picks that you can restrict as free agents if they could just do this? It will literally defeat that purpose. If a player just has to take a little bit of heat but they can go play where they want,